It is your Wednesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to have you guys back for another day. Good show, as always. Aerial Powers from the Minnesota Lynx will join me here in just a little while to talk about the upcoming Lynx season. They have their first preseason game Friday. The regular season opens in a couple weeks. Powers entering her third season with the Lynx. One of the few veterans on this year's team. A lot of newcomers, a lot of young players expected to play larger roles, especially than in years past for the Lynx, and Aerial Powers, one of those players. So talked about the season ahead, talked about some of her Detroit roots, some of kind of her evolution as a player, now entering her 8th season in the league. So I hope you enjoy that conversation, and I got some perspectives from Lynx head coach and president of basketball operations, Cheryl Reeve, on Powers and the season ahead as well. We will also get to some Twins thoughts at the end of the show, opening their series against the White Sox. First, though, what did I miss? I want to go spend a little extended time here talking about the Wild. I know I've done that a little bit lately, but you know what? This is their time to kind of wrap everything up. Season ended just a few days ago, and then we had the season-ending news conference for Bill Guerin and for Dean Evison on Tuesday, and I was not there for that. The aforementioned Aerial Powers interview was happening roughly the same time, so I could not make it over there, but I listened back to it, and I thought Guerin, as always, was interesting. He's one of the more candid decision makers we have around, and I think he does a very good job overall. Still, my default going into listening to him talk was, maybe kind of a defensive posture or a kind of hands on hips, just kind of like, what's going on here? Ready to shake my head a lot, and to his credit, I ended up nodding a little bit more and agreeing a little bit more with his kind of perspectives on the big picture than I thought I would. And just listening back on it, I want to piece a few of the selections, a few of the clips together, because I think it paints a pretty cohesive narrative of kind of what he was trying to say about the season, their goals, losing in Game 6, the disappointment in that versus what they're ultimately trying to build here. So let's listen to Guerin for a few minutes and some of his thoughts on the big picture and how this season played out.
There's been this narrative out there right now that the Wild can't get past the first round. They can't get past the first round. And I can understand the frustration, but there are a small handful of players who have been here for a lot of that, and most of them are new. That's not, in my mind, that's not the narrative of this team. We have a lot of new players. We have a lot of young players that are just getting going. And they weren't part of that. We're going to write our own narrative, but that's not the narrative for this team. And I understand it is frustrating, but I refuse to hold our players that are new here responsible for what's happened in the past. So, that being said, we're going to move forward and keep trying to get better and, continue to try to build a team that can compete for a championship. And I think we're doing a lot of good things on and off the ice, and one day we'll get there. Craig and I have talked about this at length, and even while I was interviewing for this job, and quite frankly, neither of us had time or the stomach for a rebuild, and we felt we were good enough to kind of do it on the fly, and I think we're doing a good job of that. I think, we've kept all our picks and things like that. We've got some really good young players in the system that are they'll be here soon, and I think they'll help. I think, but it honestly, I wish I could kind of speed things up and get some of these kids here now, but no, I don't want to miss the playoffs. Yeah, that's not my goal, and I know it's not Dino's goal, and it's definitely not the players' goal. That, I always say, general managers and ownership, they are the ones that want to rebuild. Coaches and players, they don't care about that stuff. They just want to win. They just want to coach, and they want to play, and they want to win every night. It's hard because it is disappointing that we haven't gotten past the first round, but that's not the goal. Yeah, it would be nice. It'd be great. It'd be awesome to get to the second round. It would. But that's not what we're building towards here. We're not. I think that's your narrative. That's what you guys write about. We're trying to build something bigger than that. And sometimes there's pain involved. I think if you see a lot of the championship teams, they've gone through some pain. Look at Tampa Bay. They didn't make the playoffs every year. They went to the conference finals, and they didn't make the playoffs. Like, there are ups and downs. It is a struggle. It is hard. It is hard to – but you know what? We've made the playoffs 3 years in a row now. And 2 of those years are with massive cap hits, dead space. So when you talk about getting over the hump or, like – I don't know. I think our team's played pretty well. And, hey, look, we play good teams in the playoffs, too. They're trying to win, too.
Now, as I listened to that and was nodding my head more than I thought I would, I was struck by the idea of why do I feel differently, or at least somewhat differently right now, about the Wild than I do the Timberwolves. When the Timberwolves had their season-ending news conference a few days ago, and Tim Connolly was up there saying we want to keep this together, we think we've got a good starting five to build around, even though if that's objectively true, I felt different about that than I do about what Bill Guerin was saying just a few days later. Even though these teams are very similar in a lot of ways, right? Both of them struggling to get over a certain hump, but both of them being in the postseason. The Wild, the last 3 years, the Wolves, the last 2 years in the playoffs, at least for both of those teams. Both of them definitely have a young star to build around with Kirill Kaprizov and the Wild, Anthony Edwards with the Wolves. I'd say the Wolves maybe even have just as much proven talent right now. So why do I feel differently? What makes me look at one thing differently than the other? And I think maybe this is some of what Jim Souhan was getting at in his column the other day about the Timberwolves and Towns versus Kaprizov, Wolves versus Wild, which I thought was interesting and thought-provoking as well. Maybe what has me thinking differently about these two teams is less about the present and more about the future. I feel like the Wild's capacity to get better in the next 3 to 5 years is much greater than the Wolves' capacity. And I say that knowing that Anthony Edwards still has another level or two, maybe more than that, to go, that Jaden McDaniels can still get better from what he is. But just looking at the way the Wolves are constructed, looking at everything they gave up in the Rudy Gobert trade, looking at everything that kind of falls salary cap-wise for them, after next season, it's hard for me to see how they get immeasurably better. I can see them getting better than what they are right now, but I don't know if I can see the path, at least from right here, at least unless they do something like a trade, like a big blockbuster trade to get themselves kind of out of this roster construction. Unless they do that, it's hard for me to see them staying the course and becoming the team they want to be, becoming the franchise they want to be. The Wild, I feel differently because if you look at the farm system, you look at the prospects, two different independent outlets, so two different outlets independent of each other, I should say, The Athletic and another site, hockeywriters.com, both in the last 4 or 5 months labeling the Wild as having the best prospect pool in the entire NHL. ESPN saying, earlier this year, right before the season started, that they're kind of top 5 in terms of not just prospect, but kind of mix of prospects, current roster, everything about the franchise. So they've got room to grow here. They're going to be cap constrained for another couple years here. The buyouts from Zach Parise and Ryan Suter are still going to hit the cap, but they've navigated that pretty well so far and seem like they are in position to navigate it relatively well, even as these buyouts hit the cap pretty hard for the next 2 years. So I see their ceiling, maybe not the immediate ceiling, but I see their 3 to 5 year window being more open right now than the Wolves window. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe this is a perception versus reality thing, but to me, it's going to be hard for the Wolves to get immeasurably better because they lack that draft capital, right? They gave up this year's first-round pick, 2025, 2027, and 2029 to get Rudy Gobert. And not only does that cost you a lot of that draft capital, it means you can't make another trade like that to get another high-caliber player because you cannot trade draft picks in consecutive years. The Wolves, unless they make some sort of other trade to get more draft capital, they can't trade a first-round pick until 2030. 2031, something in the next decade. Think about that. So as they're trying to get better, not only are they not adding young players, they're not able to trade their draft picks to get better players because they kind of push the chips in with the Gobert trade. Now, I think they still have room to get better with Gobert. I think this season maybe wasn't the best indicator of what their ceiling is. That said, I feel like the Wild with that prospect pool, even if I was ready to kind of like groan when I heard Guerin say, wait till next year, we're on the right path. I believe it more when he says it than when Tim Connolly says it. So that to me was the difference in the messaging going forward from these teams. And I want to leave you with one more final thought from Guerin. Here's some interesting thoughts on what Joel Eriksson-Ek and some of the other guys in this series meant to them.
It's hard, but we have to get better in certain situations, and we took too many penalties, and when we did, we struggled on the kill. We didn't have our top guys scoring. It's tough. It's tough. We lost an incredibly valuable player in Eriksson-Ek. When he took that shot in Pittsburgh, and where we sit up watching the games, it was like a deflated feeling because you knew it was bad, and he's just so important to us. And that was a really big loss. I think the injury to Kirill, I don't think the injury was an issue, but I think him being out for a month, you don't just jump right back in and it doesn't matter who you are. It takes you a little while to get going, and I think for him to get to really get back into that rhythm, back into the game shaped stuff, it has an effect on you. So those are tough things,
And listen, in sports, all the time, it's a fine line between explanations and excuses, right? I think the Wolves in their playoff series certainly had explanations for why things didn't ultimately go their way. Missing Naz Reid, missing Jaden McDaniels, missing Kyle Anderson in Game 5, still competitive in the last 4 games against a good Nuggets team. Joel Eriksson-Ek, certainly a guy that the Wild really missed in that series, only able to play 19 seconds, as we found out later. Tried to play with a broken leg. Imagine trying to play hockey with a broken leg. I don't know how that's even possible after just a few weeks of breaking it, but that's what he tried to do. That's how much they missed him. That's how much they wanted him on the ice, wanted what he brought. So think about that in terms of his relative value next year. They did fine in the regular season without Kirill Kaprizov. They could make up for Kaprizov. They could not make up, at least in the playoffs, for someone like Joel Eriksson-Ek, especially on special teams, especially trying to shut down the other team's top line 5-on-5. So his value takes a huge boost by his absence in the playoffs, and that's something else to think about in the future. But down the road, you look at all the prospects the Wild have, you look at the possibilities they have in the farm system. Some of the guys here already, guys like Brock Faber making their debuts in the postseason, but still plenty in the pipeline, and that to me gives them the edge long-term over the Timberwolves and makes me think of Bill Guerin as the more trustworthy voice in this kind of stay the course message than Tim Connolly was.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Let's talk some Lynx on today's Daily Delivery. Had a chance to get over to Lynx practice on Tuesday afternoon. Caught up with Ariel Powers, 8th-year veteran now, one of the higher-priced players on the team. Had a good season a year ago, averaged a little over 14 points a game. Should benefit this season from a kind of a different style of offense the Lynx will be playing now that they now that the great Sylvia Fowles has retired, they'll play more of a 5-out offense, a lot of motion, a lot of interchangeable parts. She should benefit from that. She should benefit from kind of a third year in the system, but they will be leaning on her heavily. This is her last year under contract with the Lynx. A lot of players in their last year of contract with the Lynx, so there could be some turnover heading into next season. But for this year right now, Powers figures to be a very important player, and here is my conversation with her.
It's kind of a clean slate, fresh start. What are your goals, expectations as they pertain to yourself or the team right now?
For the team, I feel like the last couple of seasons we haven't started off the way we wanted to. So starting off this year better. Coach talked today about, we were averaging like 16 turnovers, which is horrible. We want to get that down, better transition defense. And I don't know if you watch, a lot of our practice, but we look a lot more athletic than we have been. So just excited to start and really kick off and see where we're at. We have a scrimmage coming up in like 2-3 days or something like that. So really
Thursday and then Friday, the preseason game,
So really get the test and see where we line up and what we need to work on.
Cheryl said you guys are playing more of a 5-out offense this year, and that could suit a lot of what you like to do. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I love a 5-out offense because it allows everybody to have more room. And now we have a lot of girls that are super athletic. They can move out the paint, hit the three. We can drive and kick a little bit more because the paint will be clear. So a little bit more of a fast-paced offense than we have been.
Okay, no, that sounds good. As you kind of been practicing so far, what do you see from other teammates, younger teammates, just kind of like who you've got in the building right now? Because it's a fair amount of turnover from what's been in the past.
Yeah, I love it. The girls have been extremely eager, especially the young ones, but in a good way.
Yeah,
eager to learn, eager to participate, eager to bring energy.
Yeah,
and that carries over, to the court. And it's been really, really fun. And also, I'm more in a vet role now. The younger kids ask me questions, and now that I feel like I know, the system and what Coach wants and what she needs, I'm able to give them the correct answer. So I really feel like we're gelling a little bit more than I thought. The chemistry is really good.
That's good.
It's really good. Yeah.
You were top 5 pick, 2016, right? Does it feel like
whatever year it was? Don't age me.
Does it feel like hey, listen, I'm way older than you. It's okay. Does it feel like that flies by? And then when you just say right now, you're one of the veterans, does it feel weird to say that?
Yeah. It feels weird. I feel old.
But you're not old. We age athletes. We talk about athletes in their mid-30s they're old. It's that's not old in the context of life.
I know.
But
it does feel weird, but it feels great. I also feel ready to be in that position.
Okay.
I come to camp healthy. I sharpen up, a lot of things that I think I need to work on in the off season, handling the ball, shooting the three better. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be in this position. Yeah.
If veteran now Ariel Powers could go back and talk to rookie Ariel Powers 7 years ago, what would you tell yourself? What would you want the younger version of yourself to know?
Enjoy the process, the good, the bad, and I feel like I was so eager when I was a rookie that I just go. I didn't know how to sometimes relax on the court.
Okay.
Relax, let everything come to me. Because I was just so eager to prove myself.
Yeah.
Just relax, let everything come to me, and play within the offense and stuff. So, yeah.
Is that some of the stuff you want to impart on a rookie like Diamond Miller, people like that?
Yeah, I was telling them, the rookies were asking me, what's the top 3 things I need to make sure I do in training camp? And I was like, 1, do not don't let someone go before you and then you mess up the same thing they messed up. So not the same mistakes.
Learn from the mistakes.
Learn from the mistakes. 2, you've been playing basketball for a while, so don't get so nervous that you're not playing yourself.
Okay.
And 3, so basically relax out there.
Yeah.
And 3, do what you're main what you're known for. What are you good at? Is it really good defense? Yeah. Is it taking to the rack? Is it threes? Just be efficient in what you're known for, and then also just give it to your teammates. So.
Is it hard to do that when you're young? Hard to kind of relax? Because I think even you,
Yes,
just
because
you're trying to make such an impression, or if you're a high pick like you were.
You're trying to make a good impression, and you want to make sure, you're doing everything right. And sometimes, mistakes are will get you down just because you're eager and you're young, which is fine, but also finding that balance of relaxing and just playing your game. That was a struggle for me, like when I was younger, just like relaxing and playing my game. So now I'm here.
Yeah. I asked Cheryl the same question a few minutes ago, but like, if you look at external expectations, like power ranking, stuff like that, I don't know what you guys look at, how much you care about that, but if someone says, the Lynx, maybe not a playoff team this year, whatever do you use that? Can you use that as motivation, or how do you pay attention to external factors like
I actually never really pay attention to them, because where I'm from, who cares what they got to say?
Okay.
But if I happen to see it or someone says it, it's always fuel for me. It's always motivation. I got that Mamba mentality. You shake the tree. You shake the tree, you know what's gonna come out. So,
what does that mean?
Like Mamba, snake. You shake the tree,
okay.
you know what's gonna come out.
Okay.
So if I don't hear it, I really don't pay no attention to it. But I think this year we're gonna surprise some people with how athletic we are and how coach is like getting this team together. It's gonna be different than I feel like the last 2 seasons for sure.
Okay. What's your relationship with Cheryl? You've had a lot of coaches over the years, I'm sure.
Yeah. Me and Coach's relationship is good. Just making sure I learn from. She's one of the best coaches. Making sure I learn from her, listen to her, whatever she needs. I'm here. If she needs me to be the defensive stopper this year, I will be. Okay. If she needs me to get a bucket, I will be. So, whatever the team needs me to be, I want to make the playoffs and make a really, really good run. That's the goal.
You won a championship with Washington, 2019?
Yeah.
When you do that, at a third, fourth year in your league, like, has that changed your outlook on, like, man, I want to win another one?
Yes.
Obviously,
a
championship is always the goal, but, like, when you win one, does that make you hungrier to win another one?
For me, it does. I fiend for another one. Like, I remember, I was just talking to somebody the other day about what it felt like that day, that night.
When you won it all?
When we won it all.
Yeah, what did it feel like?
Amazing. It felt like, we had worked so hard for it. We didn't go to sleep for a week. I'm trying not to go to sleep again for a week. I'm trying to celebrate and have fun. And, it takes more than just saying it, right?
Yeah.
It's bringing it every day, being consistent, being there for your teammates, being there, being accountable, listening to your coaches. So it takes all of that. So
okay. A couple more things for you, and then I'll let you go. One, I know you're from Detroit, right, originally? Yeah. How much do your roots play into who you are now and kind of your personality
it plays into who I am. You listen to Big Sean, you listen to T Grizzly. Like, I talk to them. Like, those are my guys. Like, you listen to their music, you know what we're about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We bring that certain edge no matter what we're doing, and I feel like I bring that on the court, that energy, that edge. It's just within me because where I'm from.
Yeah. Okay, last thing I like to ask people this. What's one thing about you that people may not know or that would surprise them in kind of a fun way?
I feel like I told everybody everything. I like to fish and I like video games. I'm very lame.
You stream, right?
Yeah.
You still do that?
Yeah, I just have to set it up here when I get a chance.
What do you play?
Call of Duty, 2K, Apex Legends.
Okay.
Yeah.
You take people out?
Yeah, I love it.
All right, Ariel, appreciate it.
Take care, appreciate you. All right, thanks.
Postscript to that, like I mentioned during the conversation with her, I had already talked to Cheryl Reeve, the head coach and president of basketball operations. I asked her about Aerial Powers and kind of what her role would be this season. Here was Cheryl Reeve on that.
I think sort of recognizing her spots. We're playing a 5-out offense, which suits her.
Okay.
And that's what I told her. I said, you're going to like this. This is not, where we've got people in the paint, because she likes to get to the basket. Want her to be able to have more consistency in shooting the ball. I want her, defensively to just keep growing in our schemes and what we ask her to do. And that's what you're asking for of your leaders, to provide the example. And so obviously AP being, a 7 or 8 year veteran.
Yeah, 12, 16.
Yeah, so that's what you're expecting from players like that.
I get the sense this is a player the Lynx are going to have to lean on pretty heavily this season if they are going to compete for a top 8 spot. That said, I said top 8 means making the playoffs in the 12-team WNBA. Now, that said, I don't know if that's the expectation, at least externally right now. I'd ask Cheryl Reeve about that as well. Here were her thoughts kind of on external versus internal expectations.
It matters to me as much as it mattered when they said we were first.
Okay.
I don't find the experts to be all that expertly. So I don't really care on the outside. What I will say is, I'm not naive as to the team we had over past years. I'm motivated for this team to be the best version of themselves they can be. If that defies expectations on the outside, great. But that's not our motivation. Our motivation is ourselves. Don't compare us to last teams. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this team. And we're all motivated by how do we become the best team we possibly can be. And if that surprises people, then so be it.
Now, final thought on that. I don't think this would not be a terrible season to be in the bottom four again. The Lynx wound up in the lottery a year ago, breaking a long streak of making the playoffs. They'd made it every year from 2011 through 2021. That is 11 seasons. Missed it last year, wound up in the lottery, moved up in the lottery to the number 2 spot where they took Diamond Miller, one of those kind of rebuilding pieces. Already have Nafisa Collier. She figures to be a big part of this year's team as well. They need to add some more of those pieces. That's kind of how the dynasty started in the 2010s, right? They got some pieces. They had acquired Lindsay Whalen already. They already had Simone Augustus. They got Rebecca Brunson. Then, boom, they draft Maya Moore. They win the lottery, and they are off to the races. Next year's WNBA draft could have Caitlin Clark, could have Paige Beckers in it. That would be quite a 1-2 at the top of the draft. If you hold one of those 2 tickets in 2024 and can get your point guard, get your guard of the future, that could set you up for the next 5 to 10 years. So, not saying they should tank, not saying that's what they're doing. What I am saying is wouldn't be the worst year in the world to miss the playoffs for a second straight year. Finish off this kind of rebuild, this reconfiguration, figure out who on this roster you want to build around, and go from there.
Time to check my social media, yeah. To see who loves me online. Hashtag blessed life.
Always look for an excuse to play that sounder, but also was reminded when I saw the Twins result last night of a tweet I got yesterday afternoon from Matt Svensson saying, this pitching matchup seems to favor the Twins. This would be a tough loss, ? He was pointing out that the White Sox starter, Michael Kopech, entered last night's game 0-3 with a 7.01 ERA, while Twin starter Joe Ryan entered the game with a 5-0 record and a 2.81 ERA. In fact, Ryan pitched great, but the Twins did not get much offense. They lose 3-2 in 10 innings to the White Sox. Yeah, I'd say that's a bad loss. You've got one of your top 3 starters going against a guy who hasn't won all season. The White Sox have been bad this year. It's still early. I think the White Sox are better than what their record is showing right now, but still, that's a game you want to have. You don't want to start a slide here. You don't want to give the White Sox any kind of hope or momentum or thoughts that, hey, this bad month of April could turn into a better month of May and turn this thing into a race, into a 3-team race potentially, because I think Cleveland is still going to be decent. Instead of just maybe a 2-team race with Minnesota and Cleveland. You don't want the White Sox getting any ideas about turning this thing around. So yeah, that's a bad loss. 1 out of 162. You never overreact really to one loss in baseball. But yes, when you have an undefeated pitcher going against a winless pitcher, that qualifies as a bad loss. Twins, like I said, not able to get much offense. That's usually the story when they struggle this season. They did rally to tie it. Nick Gordon home run in the 8th inning got them tied at 2, but they lose in the 10th. They will try it again today. Let's finish with the cooler. A couple of playoff things that caught my eye. Number 1, man, I guess Jake Ottinger is solvable. The Wild couldn't do it much in their first round series, but the Seattle Kraken get 5 past the Lakeville goalie, Dallas Stars goalie. They win 5-4 despite 4 goals by Joe Pavelski, a guy the Wild didn't have to face much in the series. So Seattle not only overcomes the return of Joe Pavelski, who was knocked out early in Game 1 by a hit from Matt Dumba, but they get 5 on Jake Ottinger. I guess it is possible to do it. Will wonders never cease? I know, I'm being a little sarcastic here. This is hockey. This is the volatility of hockey I've spoken about on the show before. But this seems to happen a lot when the Wild loses to an opponent in the first round of the playoffs, then all of a sudden that opponent gets run a little bit in the next round, and a lot of times it has to do with the goalie that they couldn't get a puck by all of a sudden is human again. That happened in Game 1, the Kraken taking a 1-0 lead with a 5-4 overtime win. And the Lakers, my goodness, beating Golden State 117-112 in the opening game of that series. That should be a fantastic series. These NBA playoffs, I'm telling you, they are as wide open as I've seen. I believe what we saw was all 1 through 8, all those seeds got through in some form in one of the conferences or the other. I don't think that's ever happened in the league. This thing is as wide open as possible. Makes you wonder, what might have happened if the Wolves had the kind of season we thought they would have. That's hindsight, though. We'll try to enjoy the foresight of how good these playoffs are and what is yet to come. But that Lakers Warriors game was tremendous. Not loving watching all these former Wolves running around helping the Lakers maybe get to another round of the playoffs, but that has been the life for a Timberwolves fan for quite some time. That will do it for me today. Good stuff coming up the rest of the week. Thinking Adam Thielen is going to be on Thursday's show. Expecting to talk to him sometime later today. Former Vikings wide receiver, now with Carolina. And there'll be some Minnesota United talk with John Marthaler later this week, probably on Friday's show as well. So look forward to those things, as well as some big Kevin Garnett thoughts on the Timberwolves on a later show as well. That is it for me. Thanks for listening. I'm Michael Rand. Back at it again tomorrow.